Somebody asked me a question, a Muslim, devout Muslim, why am I not a Muslim anymore? Well, that's a very short question, but requires a long answer. But I will still try my best to make it as concise and precise as much as I can. Um, First of all, I'm not here to accept that there is a God or gods conclusively. I'm not going to accept that, because I have kept that decision suspended unless and until someone can give me proof that God or gods exist. I'm not going to buy into the existence of God just simply because Quran or any religious scripture claims that there is God or gods. Quran says that there's only one God, but there's no reason to believe in that argument. Even if there are plenty of gods, those gods do not have to have fights amongst themselves, because the Quran and the Islamic scriptures all give a reasoning that if there were many gods, they would have problems over who to do what. But that's nonsense. If there are gods, the gods have to have higher moral understanding and discipline amongst themselves. So obviously, there is no reason why if there is a God, there cannot be plenty of gods. But coming back, that I'm not sure if there is a God or creating force. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure whether conclusively I can say that this is not a simulated video game that we are living in. And I'm not sure about that. There are plenty of reasons to argue that probably it is a simulated game. And even if there's a simulator, I don't know. I have kept that decision suspended. That makes me a sort of an agnostic apatheist. That's who I am. Then, even if there is a God, that God cannot be Allah. Why not? Because there is no reason to believe that Quran came from the Creator. There is no reason whatsoever to believe in that. Why? Because I have seen that in life I get peace if I do not follow the Islamic instructions as prescribed in the Quran. So, if I follow the Islamic instructions in the Quran, that makes me believe that it wants my destruction, and the love or the cherishing or the nourishing and that I see of life in the world makes me believe that that will be quite self-contradictory for Allah to be, or the Creator to be such as in Quran, which is against the love in the nature that I see, which works. So Quranic Allah cannot be the Creator. That's the reasoning. That's not absolute logic. That's the reasoning that I rely on. The Creator can be all mental, schizophrenic being, but still, if there is, I'm not here to bow my head, to surrender my humanity to such a Creator. So I show him my middle finger, even if that God is Allah. Then it comes to whether I believe in Quran to be the ultimate truth. No, there is no reason to believe in Quran to be the ultimate truth, because I have plenty of reasons to believe from the verses in the Quran and from the hadiths and from the Sirah that Muhammad concocted the verses in the Quran as time suited him, suited his needs. And there are plenty of examples I have given that in several of my previous videos. So no reason to believe in that. Quran is barbaric, Hadith is barbaric, Muhammad is barbaric. I'm not here to surrender myself, because Islam means surrender. I'm not here to surrender myself to such a Creator and his Prophet and his instructions. Period. I'm not. That's why I'm not a Muslim. Muhammad, during his lifetime, never had peace. He never saw really peace, especially when he started his mission to preach Islam up to the time of his death. He was always living in warlike situations. So he cannot be a prophet who could have given instructions how to live life during peaceful times. He was, from his verses, from the Quran, from his instructions, from his life, I can see that he had a suspicious mind. He was hallucinating, and it is impossible for me, absurd for me to believe that he was really being visited by Archangel Gabriel. Probably he was hallucinating. Those are all illusions. And he was a liar, and I can claim that because I have reason to believe that his claims for miracles all were rubbish. Nobody witnessed them except his own claims that he divided the moon, he went on a journey in the Burak, which was in fact a concocted story from Artaviraj of Zoroastrianism. So there's no belief in his miracle. The Quran is not the ultimate miracle. There's no reason for me to believe the Quran is the ultimate miracle, because this is the only thing I can tell about Quran. It offers no central message. It is not a book of mercy. It is contradicting itself. It is unreadable because it is not in chronological order according to the time of revelation, and that was done purposefully. And that makes me believe that treachery was engaged in not only compiling but also in writing Quran. There are several examples where Muhammad, in fact, listened to his companions, some of his companions, and changed the verses to suit the need. For example, even Surah 4 verse 95, the Sahih Bukhari confirms that it was replaced when he was saying that those who stay at home and those who go for war are not the same, or jihad are not the same. But again, a blind man said, I'm blind, what can I do? So that verse was in fact again repealed with a proviso that except those who were disabled and all. So these all make me believe that Muhammad was really concocting the verses to have his material gains fulfilled. He was a treacherous man, and he claimed that he had contacts from the divine simply to have a control of the place where he was born. For example, his ultimate target was to control Mecca and eventually to spread his power. And that's why he in fact was planning and did start attacking the Byzantine powers. And soon after Muhammad's death, his closest companions continued that mission. So it was mainly a political theocracy rather than a religion by any means. Muhammad also concocted Quran, taking from several other scriptures of that time, from other religions, and all the so-called scientific claims in the Quran were borrowed from other civilizations, and they're also full of nonsense at times, baseless at times, rubbish. Quran is filthy, dirty, against human civility. It justifies raping of war captives, making women war booties, and there are even surahs, for example Surah Anfal, which in fact instigates men to go to war, being enticed by material greed like war booties, women. And Muhammad's personal life makes me believe that he was a sexual pervert. He married more than 4 times and brought in verses to justify that, and again restricted himself. We can read that from Surah 33 verse 50 to 52. And then he was a very jealous man. he stopped his wives from getting married again through Quranic verses. Surah 33 verse 50 to 53, you have to read that. Then Muhammad stopped his own son-in-law from getting married more than once, to make sure that his own daughter Fatima is not jealous of other wives of his wife, of her husband. And then Quran, in fact, is a book which insults all other deities, all other beliefs, although at times it says that we should not insult the deities, but it does throughout. It mocks, ridicules, insults the Trinity even, and its understanding of Trinity is even flawed. It doesn't differentiate between the believer of religion and the religion itself. So, on the contrary, Jesus said, "Love thy enemy." So there's a difference between hating the ideology and the follower of the ideology. I believe, for example, you don't have to love a religion to love the follower of the religion. But Quran doesn't differentiate between that. And again, it is full of hate, and it considers all other non-Muslims to be worse creatures. And I have given you plenty of verses to confirm that. It believes that subduing by force is the ultimate target, and that will confirm the dominance of Allah, whereas that shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be the case, because even if you have subdued somebody by force, that doesn't mean that you have won his heart. So the ultimate purpose for any spiritual man should be to win someone's heart. But there is nothing for me to suggest that that is the primary purpose of the Quran or of Muhammad himself by any means. Muhammad was not a good man towards his wives. He was even playing dirty with his wives, because he even tricked one of his wives to visit her father when he was in fact planning to have sex with one of his sex slaves. Muhammad had sex slaves, so that is against morality. Soon after Muhammad's death, his caliphs had started showing who they really were. One of the men who is known as the Sword of Allah, in fact, carried out the same sort of atrocity that Muhammad carried out against Safiya, Javera, Raihana, and simply copied how Muhammad in fact raped Safiya. And quite the same way, the Sword of Allah, Khalid bin Walid, who is revered in Islam, raped Layla and killed her husband. Muhammad's closest companions, the Sahabas, when they had infights about the power, they forgot that they were brothers in faith and sisters in faith. Even Muhammad's wife, Aisha, took up arms against Muhammad's other son-in-law, Ali, and they had wars, they had battles. Now Muslims want to tell me, especially Sunni Muslims, that who form 90% of the Muslims, that they are all to be revered, when they had fights amongst themselves. The fifth caliph had poisoned Muhammad's beloved grandson, one of the beloved grandsons, and the other grandson was beheaded by the sixth caliph. And Muslims killed Muslims. Three of the caliphs, the closest ones, were killed, murdered. And I have all reasons to believe that even Abu Bakr, in fact, eventually died from poisoning. And then it carries on. Muhammad failed to pass the test, the challenge, when the Jewish woman poisoned him, because he said from the Sahih Hadith, I can read it, that he took up the challenge that he won't die after eating that poisonous meat, but he did. That means he failed. All his prayers didn't help him. And that makes me believe that he cannot be a prophet. And Muhammad claimed to be a man an example of all times, where in fact he had sex with a 9-year-old girl, so he cannot be an example for all times. And Muslims constantly try to interpret hadiths in a new way so that that can be suited for the time. Whereas if something universal, it should be universally acceptable automatically all over the world, all times. For example, 2 plus 2 is 4, everywhere, all times. Whereas Muhammad's instructions cannot be examples for all times, everywhere in the world. Islam is an Arabian fascist movement. The more Arab you become in your dress up, in your food diet, in your food habit, in your the way you talk, the way you recite, even the Quran in Arabic, everything makes me believe it's an Arabian fascist political movement, simply. So Islam cannot be a religion of truth. And again, in the modern times from now, and even if you go back to the history, you will see there are plenty of examples where Islam proved itself to be barbaric, but they were barbaric, but Islam never wanted to reform, and it says it shouldn't be reformed. The Quran says Quran cannot be reformed, and it again claims that Allah is the one who is going to protect it. Then, what is the definition of protection? If the definition of protection is that Allah is going to save it from not being altered, then there's no possibility of reforming Quran, and we shouldn't even venture reforming Quran, and we should not be even venturing to put it in the right order, in the chronological order, because Allah didn't save it for 1400 years from being corrupted into even from being chronologically set. So Quran could not be saved from the very moment it was compiled, because even the compilation was treacherous. So how come Quran says Allah is going to save it? And there are claims that if somebody can do it, bring a similar surah or Quran like that, why should I even venture to write up a book like Quran, which is anti-Semite, barbaric, filthy, dirty? Why should I even venture to write a book like that? And what kind of challenge is that? Rather, I will ask the Muslims to prove that they can write a book like Shakespeare, Socrates, like people can come up in Islam. There was never a person like Socrates in Islam. There was never a person like dedicated like even Mother Teresa, although I have reservations about Mother Teresa, but still, they're not dedicated. There are not many dedicated. Even if there are few, to my understanding, there was never a single one who was totally dedicated for humanity in the service of Islam. No, not a single example. So, by being inspired by his or her religion, no. Islam had, killed, insulted, beheaded all its critics from its inception. Even Muhammad carried out atrocities against children, and even sent children to jihad. Even the killing of Abu Jahl, read about it. Then Islam is the only religion which orders, according to Prophet Muhammad's Sahih hadiths, that anybody who leaves Islam should be killed. Islam cannot be criticized. Allah cannot be questioned. Why? There is no freedom of women. Women are always considered like sex machines. Only purpose behind their creation is to follow their husbands, obey their husbands, produce kids, and consider themselves to be food for men. Why? There's no freedom for women at all. There's no freedom in Islam. Once you become a Muslim, you live the life of a soldier. Even the prayers, they're like soldiers, up together, down together, bow together, and in Islam claims that it doesn't have clergy system in it, but it does. That's the hypocrisy. It does. And Muslims do not criticize their own culprits. that proves that Islam is a cult, is a tribal cult. They stick together, and there's no freedom. Even if when you are being brought up, you are ordered to teach Islam. When you are children, you are circumcised, so permanently you are disfigured, to remind you that you were brought up in a Muslim family. Everything that nourishes your aesthetic mind are forbidden. Music is haram, painting is haram, like the caricature of human being, haram. Dancing is haram. Poetry is often haram, if not Islamic. Why? Poets were killed. You're ordered to read Quran, which is barbaric, even at the child from your childhood. You are instructed to insult those who are go against Islam to be bastards according to Quran, and you should even go against your own brothers and sisters and even father and mother if they go against Islam. Why? Why am I told that non-Muslims cannot be my friends? Why? So I can go on for days together to tell you why I am not a Muslim. But I can tell you, I'm not a Muslim because I am a human being. And my humanity tells me that Islam cannot be a true religion. All religions are bullshit. Even if they say they are not religions. For example, nowadays there is a saying that Hindus are trying to say that Hinduism is not religion. Even Christians, some of the Christians have started saying Christianity is not a religion. Even Muslims are saying Islam is a deen, it's not religion. Buddhists are saying they're religion. By the end of the day, I can tell you that all these are, in a way, bearer of communal identities, at least for sure, that's for sure, and something to do with divinity or your spirituality, so-called. So these kind of organized religions all are bullshit, because it pushes you to hang on to age-old nonsense. And how come none of the present day people can successfully claim to be divine or son of God or prophet of God or Prabhu or even Hindu Lord? Why not? Because we are rational people, and rationality works, reason works. So-called miracles do not work. And that's why I am not a religious man. And of course, it's an insult to even ask me to be religious, because I'm not going to surrender my reasonable mind in exchange of blind belief and fairy tales. Simple, period. Anyway, I intend to make a series of this video, but I think for the time being, this should be enough.